and we're recording an on-site podcast in the most hotly contested constituency.
Pray tell which are the ones. Which country in the world is not facing cost of living pressures? Please. Opposition politics should always bear in mind that the purpose is not to oppose for the sake of opposing, but to serve our people and to take Singapore forward. I may very well lose 3-4 key ministers, experienced ministers, as well as new candidates who have the potential to be future leaders. It's impossible. Even Lee Kuan Yew didn't do his work alone. And I'm certainly not Lee Kuan Yew. I'm just putting it plainly for Singaporeans, and I hope Singaporeans will think through the consequences, vote with their hearts, and consider which is the best party to take our country forward.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your daily podcast during GE 2025, where we talk about the hottest news with a touch of what, Terence?
Good old humor.
Good old humor, man.
Yeah.
You know, we've been going around Singapore in our apolitical party bus.
Correct.
Past few days, but today we are back in the studio.
Special dispatch.
Special dispatch, a very good reason. Someone who we've been wanting to speak to for a while. We have him right in front of us right now. So please, we'd like to welcome Prime Minister Lawrence Wong.
Hello.
Welcome to Yala Bus.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank you,
to Yala
Harish
Bus.
Terence.
Yeah.
What's your apolitical bus?
So I mean, we in 2020 we did daily podcasts about GE 2020, but because of COVID we did it from our bedrooms. This year we said we want to capture the feelings on the ground.
You go out.
Yeah, so we actually wrapped a van, and we wrapped it with the slogan "Apolitical Party Bus."
Okay.
And it's us going to all 33 constituencies over 8 days. So every day we're going to 3 to 4, and we're recording a live, an on-site podcast in the most hotly contested constituency.
Pray tell which are the ones.
So we have recorded in Sembawang, Aljunied, Ang Mo Kio.
Tanjung Pagar, but more because Tiong Bahru is very nice. So
today is Holland Bukit Timah. Tomorrow will be the eastern part of Singapore, and for Thursday will be western part of Singapore.
Very good. Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. We know your schedule is super packed.
Yeah.
But how has it been the past few days?
It's been very busy. It's very different running a campaign now this year in my first time as Secretary General of the PAP compared to the past.
Yes.
I suppose when I started out in 2011 as a new candidate, I only needed to focus on my own division within the GRC. These are the blocks I had to take care of. I go knocking on every door, meet the residents, and do everything I can within the 9 days of campaign. And then when I became the anchor minister for a GRC, I had to go look at not just my own division, but the entire GRC. Now, as Sec-Gen of the PAP, I can't just look at one division or one GRC. I have to look at the whole of Singapore. So you can imagine it's a much heavier responsibility, and it's a much busier schedule.
And I mean, in some ways, we saw that when you actually had to do a press conference in the middle of hustings to address, the issues of like foreign interference in the election. So that, you were specifically coming on as the Prime Minister,
That's right?
So you saw, what do you see your role as like, because we were talking about it and we felt like, it's almost like a referee calling, hey, stop a game, time out, everyone's fighting and all that. But like, what was your specific intention in doing that as Prime Minister?
It's precisely that. I think when there are certain lines crossed, foreign interference is one clear line. Or when parties or even Singaporeans don't talk about foreign interference, but even within Singapore, when there are people who start to mix race and religion into politics, I think that's very dangerous. So the purpose of that press conference was to call it out and to remind everyone, political parties as well as Singaporeans caught up in the heat of campaign, let's have a care. There's no point winning a few more votes or even winning a few more seats, but ending up with a very deeply divided society. No one wins at the end of the day if that were to happen.
And I mean, is that something you would say is something you focus a lot on, that you see a problem, you will always nip it in the bud first? Or has it been an evolution over time where you realize these problems, if unchecked, will have bigger repercussions?
Well, where race and religion is concerned, we certainly are very vigilant. and also for foreign interference. So we continue to stay vigilant, and we do want to nip it in the bud.
So in some way that is an ethos of leadership, right? But how would you say your style of leadership is? Because even in our lifetimes, we've been through multiple PMs, and even now during elections, you see all different styles of leadership. But what would you say is yours?
I don't compare with previous prime ministers. I am my own person. I know my strengths and limitations. As a leader, I would engage, listen carefully to different perspectives. I firmly believe I don't always myself have the best answers. I want to think through and consider carefully what other people think before coming together with the best solutions. And then after that, making a decision that would, to the best of my abilities, bring everyone on board where this decision is, as far as the decision is concerned, so that everyone feels a sense of ownership, and then we can all move forward together. That's my approach to leadership.
I see. So does that affect how you recruit people as well? Are you looking for people with more kind of contrarian opinions to your own, or what's the main thing you look for when you're recruiting new candidates for the PAP?
The main thing is really people with the heart to serve. I believe everyone has different views and different perspectives. I mean, this thing about groupthink, for example, even if you are part of the civil service and you see so many different civil servants, everyone has different views. Even if you are in the SAF or the private sector, each individual, I look at every individual on his or her own merit. And everyone has capabilities. They bring with them their own experiences, their expertise, their own passions and causes that they want to champion and advocate. And so that's welcoming. I see that diversity, but importantly, I look out for people with the right character and the heart to serve people, because that's what politics ultimately must be about. It's about serving Singaporeans.
So I mean, sorry, just to ask, like, so what would make you say no to a candidate, for example? Because we have spoken to people who said they have, had interviews at PAP and all that, and they've not made the rounds, but I try to understand, like, what would make someone not a candidate.
PAP does its tea sessions. The famous or infamous tea sessions, depending on how you view it. We do it all the time. Even right after an election, we do these tea sessions just to get to know people. Basically, we are always on the lookout for good people. When we identify someone, it could be through multiple sources. Ministers, MPs, some friend tells us, look out for this person. He's very good. He's got a heart to serve. He may bring something to the team. We say, fine, please come and join us for tea. A minister hosts the tea. And then typically with a few other people, we just get to know these individuals. And over time, we build a relationship. If we think that the individual has the right fit, has the potential, we get to know them better. We invite them to join us for our activities. And hopefully there's a match. It's really a two-way match. It's not just a one-way matter. It's like a relationship. You have, sometimes it's the individual who says, look, maybe this party is not for me. Maybe politics is not for me, after learning more about us. Sometimes it's us, after learning more about the individual, figuring out that, well, he's got a good heart, but not sure that this person can really thrive in the arena of politics. And perhaps he or she can serve in other areas. So it's really finding the right match. And if that right match happens, then we will feel the person as a candidate.
So, after such an elaborate process, how do you feel certain things that happen, say some of the more controversial things that happen in the past year or two, with trials and sometimes there's a lot of backlash towards issues that come up that deal with people's conduct. For example, extramarital affairs and all that. How do you see that impacting the impression or the image of the PAP?
I would say people are not perfect. Everyone makes mistakes. And no matter how hard we vet, scrutinize, and identify good people, we are all humans and people do make mistakes. And some previous MPs have done so. And we have taken actions. But each time something like that happens, it's very unfortunate. But we are honest, we are transparent, we and let the public know what happened, and we take remedial actions quickly. It's not the first time, it's happened before, and I'm sure it will continue to happen because no one is perfect. I think more important than the mistake itself, it's how we approach something like that. And our approach is to be upfront about it, to acknowledge it, and to be transparent with Singaporeans. And hopefully that will ensure that even when mistakes happen, it does not impact on the trust and the compact that the PAP has forged with Singaporeans.
Did you feel it have any impact over the past few years? Because, I mean, you talk about the remedial actions, but from your perspective, was there an impact? Do you feel any repercussions?
Well, we will see in this election, I suppose, is one answer and response to that question. But as far as I can tell, we have dealt with the issues transparently. And we hope Singaporeans understand that these things can happen. And what's more important, like I said just now, whether it could be corruption, it could be extramarital affairs. And when it happens, we take prompt action. That's what's more important. And these things are not new. So from that point of view, it has happened before. It can happen. It might very well happen again because people do make mistakes. But we want to assure Singaporeans that whenever it happens, we will deal with it quickly, promptly, decisively, and we will always be honest with them.
And I mean, as the Prime Minister, does it mean that you always have to be, if there's ever a mistake made on anything, you always have to be the face to answer the public about the mistakes? Or do you think that, the ministers being very capable or each of them should be taking charge of their own area and have their own mistakes and really owning up to it? Like, say, for example, NRIC saga with ACRA and all. I think we were quite, pleasantly surprised that they came to the front and, had a press conference and apologized. But where is the Prime Minister's role in that? Like, where do you see yourself in that?
So it depends on the issues, right? If it's a serious enough national issue, ministries across the whole of government bound to have lapses.
Yeah.
And when these lapses happen, depending on the severity of it, it could be the remedial actions, the apologies, the steps taken to rectify could be done at different levels. Sometimes at the senior civil servant level, sometimes at the minister level. And if, of course, it becomes really a national issue, then I'll have to step forward. But regardless of who fronts it, I will be aware. I will know what the issue is about as leader of the team, and I will make sure that as a government and as a PAP team, we take ownership of it and we take responsibility. And at the same time, we not only come up to acknowledge the mistake, but learn from the setback and do better the next time.
So I mean, that's heartening to know that, there's a lot of retrospection that is done for that sort of stuff. But on the note of retrospection and looking back, we are in the midst of an election. And I mean, we, like a lot of Singaporeans, have also been consuming a lot of content, a lot of speeches. But I wanted to understand from your perspective, from your team's perspectives, what is the strategy for focusing a lot on what has been done in the past? And even for new candidates, it is about their accomplishments, but less about the future. And I know there are differences in strategies, there's differences being incumbent and opposition, but as a layperson looking, it is a question that I have. Like, there's been a lot of focus on the bleakness of the present. For new candidates, it's a lot on what they have done with higher level statements on what they would like to push for. But it's a bit too high level, too abstract.
A few things to unpack there.
Correct, yeah.
The bleakness of the messaging, I suppose part of it is because we are dealing now with a very big challenge, an economic storm and a changed world. And we wanted to explain to Singaporeans the challenges be upfront and as transparent as possible, what the challenges are and what the stakes are. And so we had to do that at the beginning of our campaign. But as you might have heard, or I hope you would have heard, if not, then our messages have not gotten through and we have to work harder at it, that we are not just talking about that now. We are also talking about the fact that in this changed world, there will be opportunities for Singapore. We are not just dealing defensively to protect jobs and workers and businesses. We are proactively finding opportunities in a very difficult environment. And this is what me and my team will strive to do. On the other parts of it, whether or not we talk about past versus future, which is another aspect of what you asked, I suppose you have to find the right balance. We do talk about our track record because that's what I think Singaporeans will demand of us. This is election time. It's like passing up your report card. You promised all these things in 2020. Have you delivered? And so we will have to talk about that inevitably, and we do. But we also talk about the future. I mean, if you look at the manifesto, we focus very much on our plans and programs for the future. And we will deliver these plans and programs because the PAP's track record is clear. It's, we've been doing this not just one election, 2 elections, and we have been taking responsibility for leading Singapore for 60 years. And we will continue to do so if Singaporeans give us their confidence and trust. And when we make promises, we will deliver.
I mean, when we first started hearing about Trump's tariffs, and I think you made a very quick statement about it, that around the world, a lot of people also picked up on about how the Trump's tariffs and how that affects countries, right?
Yes.
There was also a response, where people were saying, fear-mongering and words like that. How did it make you feel? Did you feel frustrated that people were not seeing the immediacy of or urgency of the problem, especially given your background, in your career as well, understanding Singapore's role in and how trade is very important to us? How did that make you feel when people were reacting like that?
Well, in some ways, I wasn't surprised because there will be a political reaction, and I think some of that reaction would be to accuse us of overreacting and using this to exploit this for political gain. That would be what some parties say. I can't control what people say. I can only do things the best I can under the situation, and I think the right thing to do as a government at that time before we entered campaign is to be upfront and honest with Singaporeans what the challenges are. And if you look at the situation, it's quite clear in our minds that this is not just an ordinary downturn. There are broader issues at stake about the erosion of trade, rules, and the very system of governance for the entire global system. And we are not the only one talking about this. The WTO, the IMF, many other international organizations have expressed grave concerns. So we felt it was important for Singaporeans to understand what's at stake. Beyond just the immediate downturn, there are these storm clouds, and we presented it as factually, objectively as possible.
Okay. And do you see like a tough balance to strike between talking about the current challenges? Because anyone would be aware of the new challenges in the world. But I will say that sometimes when I listen, I feel that there's more focus on the bleakness and less about the future potential. And when I contrast it with opposition, there is that balance. And I understand there are challenges. But how do you see the balance between focusing on the reality, practicality, and also inspiring Singaporeans?
Well, that was what I said just now, that we started out talking about this at the beginning because we wanted people to understand. But since then, or in more recent days, for example, yesterday when I spoke at the Fullerton rally, I tried to focus more on what we can do in Singapore to seize these new opportunities. And in fact, we have been doing so, if not been waiting for post-election, because even in the midst of a campaign, my team and I have been very hard at work engaging our counterparts. I've been speaking to leaders from around the world, identifying opportunities for Singapore to strengthen our partnerships, to strengthen trade and investment links with new markets. Kim Yong has been talking to the American side. He's our lead person negotiating with the U.S. Commerce Secretary on very sensitive and difficult issues like tariffs and trade matters. So precisely so that we can find new opportunities for Singapore so that we can stay ahead of these challenges. And as we do all this, we will be able to get through the storm. We will be able to find opportunities. We will be able to make a good living, even in this difficult environment. But it really depends on having a strong, capable team in government. And that's what we are trying to present that to Singaporeans, to understand that there is a future. In fact, our best days, I firmly believe, lie well ahead of us. There is much we have done, but there's still much more we can achieve together. But we need a good team in the government to be able to secure that brighter future for everyone.
Okay. Well, so speaking of a good team in government, I think it's quite interesting in your political broadcast. You said that there's a role for constructive and responsible opposition. What do you expect of a constructive opposition in government?
Well, the opposition will ask questions, they will critique policies, they will have robust debates in parliament. But I also hope a constructive and responsible opposition will present credible alternatives. And the key word there is credible. Because it's easy to offer sweet deals, sweet promises where you don't have to be responsible for delivering them or figuring out how to pay for them. But a constructive, responsible opposition would offer credible alternatives. Then we can debate these alternatives, and in the end, we can figure out what's the best way forward for Singapore. Opposition politics should always bear in mind that the purpose is not to oppose for the sake of opposing, but to serve our people and to take Singapore forward.
But is there this expectation that, providing credible solutions, even I as a voter, I want to listen to details, be it from the incumbent or from the opposition. But in your mind, do you think they have the access to resources, access to info, enough of that to actually come up with a very detailed proposal? Because I know that's what sometimes I feel. I can understand there are reasons why certain info might not be made public, but how would you respond to that? Because I know a lot of people do have that question.
A lot of info is out there in the public domain, actually. But if you look at most of the proposals and ideas that have been put forward by opposition parties, there's a whole range of them that is really in the genre, I would say, of the government proposes something positive, and then they say, well, if that's so good, why not we do a bit more? And sometimes they try to outbid one another too. One opposition party says, let's have minimum wage at this level. Another says, well, that's very good. Why not set the minimum wage even higher? One opposition party says, let's have one public holiday. Another one says, jolly good, let's have 2 public holidays. Well, then you end up in you don't need a lot of data, but this is about. I mean, when you engage in things like that, then you're really offering sweeter and sweeter promises. Looks very good, but you don't really talk about the consequences. You don't bear any responsibility for delivering them. And I hope Singaporeans will not be taken in by such sweet promises.
So is that a reality that we do need to accept that? I assume maybe, 50 years ago when Singapore was up and coming, there was less almost momentum. So changing course, like when you're a small business, pivoting early is easy. But when you're an MNC, pivoting is hard. Is that the reality of where Singapore is now, in the sense that are radical changes something that is even possible? I know certain parties have proposed free healthcare, free education. And I can tell, it sounds good, but in my mind is also, how do we do that? But do you see a place for changes like that? Or in your view, every change needs to be incremental?
I can appreciate where that sentiment comes from, because sometimes when I talk to younger civil servants and engage them, they say the same thing. It's almost like everything has been done in Singapore. All the big pieces have been built and established. And if you look across the system, healthcare, education, retirement, housing, we rank very well in international league tables. So they think, the days of making these big, bold moves are over. All we can do today are radical, are incremental changes, along the lines of what you just said.
Yeah.
But I would tell them, and I would say to everyone in Singapore that I don't believe that's true. I don't believe that's true. Even within existing systems, we can change, we can improve, whether it's healthcare, whether it's retirement, whether it's education, we will continue to improve and make bold changes where necessary. Secondly, if you look at some of the new things we are doing and the frontier areas that we are venturing into, actually we are perhaps doing it. There are no role models. There are no textbook answers to follow anymore. We are now setting the path. Take, for example, Healthier SG. You may say, what's Healthier SG? It's no big deal. It's our whole national campaign and push to make everyone healthier and focus on preventive care rather than treating only those who are treating sickness.
Yeah.
We want people to take steps to be healthy and use a whole network of family physicians to help us with that. No other country is doing it at the scale that we are attempting to. It's a big change in mindsets as well for the entire healthcare ecosystem. And we are trying to push it at the national level. I think this is a big, bold, radical move. You may not see it that way, but if you are in the healthcare arena and you know what other countries are doing, grappling with their healthcare system, in fact, what we are doing is pioneering a very new effort in this world. And that's what we can do in many other areas too. So I would say these efforts at making bold moves, radical moves, are certainly not behind us. And I want to continue this as Prime Minister if I'm given the chance. In the past year alone, just within the year since I've taken over, I've tried to do that as much as I can, but I've only started. And I hope Singaporeans will give me the chance, give my team the chance to continue this journey with them in the next term.
So, I mean, because you talked about opposition and the constructive role of opposition, we've also seen, because of live streams and all, we've seen in Parliament, there have been quite heated discussions between both sides of the aisle.
Yes.
And even in the international arena, we see, for example, how President Trump spoke to President Zelensky at the White House and all. Does it worry you that, in terms of decorum in politics, we are moving towards a much more adversarial way of opposition and incumbent talking to each other? Do you feel that that's something that we need to try and rein in our own parliament, or it's par for the course given what an opposition and incumbent needs to do?
Well, I think politics in Singapore will become more contested. There's no doubt. That's a trend that's happening. What I would say is I hope it doesn't go down the path in some countries where we end up with negative politics, with the politics of anger and division. I hope we don't end up with identity politics where race and religion gets mixed into it. I hope we don't end up in a situation where foreign policy gets treated as political football. And then, because everyone claims, everyone agrees in principle, politics must stop at the water's edge. But does it show up in actions? And if it doesn't, and we move more and more, pushing the lines, pushing the boundaries on race, on religion, on foreign policy, I think we end up weakening Singapore. So those are indeed issues I worry about. More than the contestation. Contestation can happen. We can have robust debates. But when we take Singapore into a direction that is bad for our country, I will not hesitate to call it out.
So, but let's say taking aside issues like that, which universally, identity politics, I think a lot of people agree it's a bad thing. But it's good to know that you feel that opposition can be constructive provided they provide actual plans. But also in the Fullerton rally yesterday, you mentioned that if the opposition is voted in, it will weaken your team. That you will lose 2 to 3 ministers. So, the concept of key man risk, right? If an organization loses a few key individuals, it's severely weakened. It isn't like, what's the reality of that? Because to me, I'm like, it means that is there no depth, which I don't think is the case. But when you communicate that publicly, why do you feel so strongly it will weaken the team? Especially because, your forward SG is about bringing people together. does that not extend to politics?
Sure. I would say this. I don't know what the balance is going to be in Parliament in the future. What kind of proportions the PAP has, what kinds of proportions the opposition parties will have. No one can tell. And even beyond this election, how will it evolve down the road? It's anybody's guess. What's the right balance? It's for Singaporeans to decide. But in this election, this very election, where PAP is facing fierce contests from not just the Workers' Party, but other opposition parties, contesting multiple seats. You just talk about hot seats just now. There are hot contests everywhere. Then I may very well lose 3-4 key ministers, experienced ministers, as well as new candidates who have the potential to be future leaders. So all I'm saying is in this election, this round, at a time when the PAP is going through a transition and I'm trying to build up a team, not just for today, but for the future, at a time when we are facing storm clouds and huge challenges ahead, there are consequences to the decision. A vote for the opposition will mean a vote that weakens my team and our abilities to take Singapore forward for this election. And I'm putting it out there and for Singaporeans to consider and to consider carefully their choices in constituencies all over Singapore.
Okay, I understand the relevance for this election and I can appreciate that. But then, like right now you're asking for the mandate of Singaporeans, which is a mandate in you, a mandate in the incumbent. But at the same time, I guess the flip side to being in power since independence is that everything that we are feeling now, in some way, can be attributed to the PAP, rightly or wrongly. So why should we have the confidence or the trust that in some way everything that the PAP has done has led us here, including moving ministers around to GRCs? I can imagine, like even I feel, but you made that choice, and then now we are being held ransom. So why should we have the confidence and the trust in the PAP to take us forward?
Indeed, the PAP has helped work with Singaporeans to take Singapore 60 years ago till today. And look what we have achieved together.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even the fiercest critics and even the opposition would recognize that it has been overall a major plus for Singaporeans. Because, and the opposition implicitly recognizes this because they say they don't want to form the government. They just want more seats. Who runs the government? It's not our problem. That's the PAP's burden to carry. So more seats, but not more responsibility. And I think that's an implicit endorsement that whatever we have done, there are some imperfections, there are some negatives, but overall it's been a positive. So I would say we have done well for Singaporeans over the last 60 years. And I ask Singaporeans, therefore, to decide, in your heart of hearts, if you truly believe that the PAP is still the best party to take Singapore forward in this election, then vote for me and my team, especially when we are going through such uncertain times. You also talked about, the PAP is responsible for the pressures and the anxieties that the Singaporeans are facing today, presumably cost of living and all these other things. But I've explained, which country in the world is not facing cost of living pressures? Please. Cost of living pressures is not unique to Singapore. It's because of imported inflation due to conflicts, wars, global supply chain disruptions. And our policy, especially our monetary policy, was effective in moderating inflation and managing it. That's why inflation in Singapore has come down faster than many other places. Housing is also not is externally induced. It's because of COVID. You do remember that before COVID, the concern was very different. Before COVID, everyone was worried about the opposite problem, prices coming down. too much supply of housing. The Workers' Party had a paper. They deny it, but you look at the paper, it's very clear. It suggested, let's cut back on BTO supply. But they were not the only ones. Property agents, experts, analysts were saying, maybe we have too much HDB and BTO supply. Let's cut back, because they were worried that prices were coming down. Who would have expected COVID to happen? No one. And COVID did happen, but it also disrupted the building program and construction. So we couldn't build enough, and only now we've been ramping up. We have caught up with supply, but with HDB, you can catch up with new supply, but you can only sell after 5 years of MOP, right? Minimum occupation.
Yeah.
So it takes a bit more time before the new supply that we have built helps to stabilize the resale market. But it will happen, and I'm confident that it will happen. So these external factors did cause issues, concerns for Singaporeans. I fully understand that. We have tried to explain what they are, why these factors happen. They have been raised in Parliament. We've presented data and facts. In many instances, the opposition has no ability to counter the data and facts, because these are factual. These are clearly externally induced. But in an election campaign, of course, they will pin it all on us. They will blame the government. They will blame the PAP for everything that goes wrong in Singapore. I suppose that's part of their campaign tactics. But again, I urge Singaporeans to consider carefully, think through carefully what the facts are and which party you think can best take Singapore forward under these circumstances.
I mean, the opposition, some of the leaders have characterized, previously we had the 5 Cs of Singapore,
Yes.
Some aspirational car, cash, credit card. And now the 5 Cs include, CDC vouchers, controversy vouchers, and things like that. I mean, I do, obviously there is a lot of exaggeration, or at least they're characterizing something differently, right? But I do want to ask, like, the idea of vouchers, right? In terms of human psychology, if you give the population vouchers every year because, the economy is, we're worried about the economy and there's something to tide you over the rise of GST, are you afraid that in time to come, Singaporeans will become addicted to vouchers? Like, every year, where's my CDC vouchers? Where's my, my goodies for a budget this year? Are you worried about that?
We always look at new schemes with a little bit of that concern, any new scheme, because we don't want to entrench. So we want to make sure whatever new scheme we introduce serves a purpose and is effective. There are some permanent schemes. For example, we have a permanent GST voucher. It's permanent, and it's designed as part of our system, precisely so that we get closer to a progressive GST system, closer, because the GST we know has its downsides. It's a flat rate tax, but then we give vouchers back to lower and middle income Singaporeans so that we protect them. And this is not temporary, it's permanent. So we do have permanent features in our system. But wherever we introduce new schemes, we try not to make them permanent at first. We review them periodically to make sure that they are effective. And where CDC vouchers is concerned, they are specifically to address cost of living concerns. And precisely because of what the world has gone through in the last few years, we know that these cost of living pressures do exist, even when inflation has come down. And that's why we've been giving out CDC vouchers. And we think it's effective in addressing the concerns for households, but also for small businesses in our heartlands, our hawkers and our heartland merchants. So we will continue to do so as long as the scheme is effective, as long as the help is needed.
So then do you think that there is almost like a disconnect, or people are not understanding how much actually has been done? Because there's a lot of terms, a lot of concepts that I can imagine are addressing the bigger issues, like what you just described. But the feeling is that it's still kind of separate from the the day-to-day experience, and joining it sometimes is a bit hard.
It is so.
So do you think that's a problem? Because going back to what you said about the healthier SG, and even, I mean, I had a child end of last year. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. And when I heard that one of your things is to increase parental leave,
yes.
I was like, that's great.
Yes.
That's great.
30 weeks.
Yeah, 30 weeks. And I really appreciate stuff like that. But do you think it is a problem of almost the packaging of all these things? Because even just now when you explain healthier SG, I never thought about it that way. That it is very all-encompassing. But when you deliver little bits, it's hard for a layperson like me to pull it all together. So do you think there's an issue with packaging everything? Do you think that is something that you all grapple with already? How to communicate the work that is being done?
We do. It's a continuing struggle,
and
it's a work in progress to keep on trying to do better. Policy communications, last mile delivery is a big issue. And I keep telling that to my colleagues and also to civil servants. We are good at designing policies, making sure that it's all, looks very good. The middle income pays more, the lower income gets protected, gets more help. All these fine details. But sometimes the more complicated it is, the harder it is to get across.
Yeah.
People don't understand. And I learned this, the big lesson was in COVID. Because remember, we had all the complicated safe distancing rules. How many persons, this, that. And it didn't work. Or at least people tuned out because it was too complex. And it was very hard for them to hoist in everything. So sometimes we are at risk of allowing the perfection to be the enemy of the good. Sometimes it's better to say, look, it's okay not to get it all so perfect, all to the nth degree. 80% is, address 80% of the challenges. The rest of it, you keep it simple. And then it's easier to implement. Importantly, it's easier to communicate. And for people, Singaporeans, to understand what we are trying to do. So that's work in progress. I would say we will continue to try do better. Even in this election campaign, we are trying. That's why I'm here. But it's a continuing challenge. I would say the other aspect of it, though, is that it's just very hard for any ruling party to be in power for so long. And we have been. And sometimes there is an element of, it's okay. Let's try something different. Let's support the underdog.
Yeah.
And that's very hard to change. I mean, that's also a psychology and mindset that's very hard to address. We understand it exists because we know that there are Singaporeans out there who say, look, I am happy to have a PAP government, but I would like to have more opposition voices in parliament. And I understand those sentiments. All I can say is, again, I go back to what I've said earlier. We are entering a storm. When you vote for the opposition in this election, it's not a free vote for more alternative voices. It is a vote that has consequence, a consequence that will weaken my team significantly at the time of a crisis. This is not fear-mongering. This is just stating the facts plainly. Let's not take lightly the loss of 3 to 4 ministers. I find it remarkable that the opposition would just wave it off lightly and say, oh, it's okay. I think that's a very cavalier and irresponsible approach to the well-being of Singapore and Singaporeans. Really, at this time, you lose key people, experienced ministers, and you say, fine, don't worry. Well, I don't take that approach at all. But in the end, Singaporeans will decide. And I'm just putting it plainly for Singaporeans, and I hope Singaporeans will think through the consequences, vote with their hearts, and consider which is the best party to take our country forward.
I mean, about the composition of leadership in government, there are some quite notable retiring politicians this round. But there are also still, more experienced politicians within the leadership of the government, like, say, Minister Shanmugam and all. Like, what is the working dynamic between you and the slightly more senior, more experienced politicians? What do you see their role as, especially given it's such a large group of new candidates coming in as well? where do they fit in terms in your leadership structure?
Well, there'll be fewer and fewer of the senior ones.
That's true.
So increasingly, it will just be me and my colleagues. People like Chun Seng, Kim Yong is hopefully still going to be present in the team. He's a key person in the team. And then Chun Seng, Yi Kang as well. And then others who joined politics with me in 2011, Desmond Lee, for example, Edwin Tong. Then we have got some new ones like Hong Tat. These are all the key members of the team. The ones who are more experienced, like you mentioned. Who do we have left besides Kim Yong? Shanmugam and SM Lee. That's it. So I would imagine the experienced ones would be continuing to provide very useful counsel and advice and guidance. They will help to mentor the younger ministers as previous experienced ministers did. And then in time to come, they will step down and then allow us to have continued renewal of our team. And some of the new candidates that are coming up now will be able to take on political office, but also over time develop, grow, and take on larger responsibilities. Like what I did. I came in at 2011. It took me time to learn, grow, and eventually take on this role. I want to be able to tell Singaporeans and assure Singaporeans that I'm not just doing this for myself. I'm not just here to, have one election and then say goodbye. You take care of Singapore. I have to take responsibility to make sure that the PAP is able to offer a good, capable team to lead Singapore and to lead Singaporeans for the sake of Singapore. And it's precisely for that sake that I take leadership renewal very seriously.
So I can understand leadership renewal, and that is critical. But for you personally, how is there a renewal of PM Lawrence Wong? And I say that because you came to the forefront during COVID.
Yes.
And just like using the analogy of a business or a company, the founder has a very different skill set to someone who goes from 1 employee to 10 employees, 11 to 1,000, 1,001 to 10,000. What has changed about you, or has there been any change at all from the time you came into the forefront during COVID, when it felt like who knows what is going to happen, to now where it is murky waters, it is a storm coming, but feels like it's a totally different challenge. But you are still Lawrence Wong. So what has changed about you, or how are you thinking about things differently, if any?
The change, I would describe my change over since coming into politics, 2011, over that whole period. If we talk about just now, civil servants and a few of us coming in from the SAF or civil service.
Yeah.
So look at the batch of us who came in 2011. I know all of them very well. Yi Kang, Chun Seng, Desmond, myself. We came in 2011. We all have different skill sets. Yi Kang is a very effective communicator. He's been on this show.
Yeah.
You've heard him, bilingual, very sharp when it comes to developing communication lines. Chun Seng, because of his experience in the SAF, very good at large-scale operations and logistics and getting things done, systems-wide. Desmond, it's a very personal leader. He makes the effort to walk the ground, engage all the different groups he meets. A lot of effort. So that's his strength, that's his forte. He enjoys doing it.
Yeah.
Small groups, retail, just listening and engaging. When I started out, I would say I started out more as a policy wonk. That was my strength. That was my background. And I was very interested in it. And so that was how I complemented the team. And we work well as a team, different people with different abilities, different strengths, but combined, it's a strong team. But over the years, as new responsibilities come up, and especially after COVID, where you can't just do policy every day, you're out in the forefront explaining to Singaporeans, engaging Singaporeans, telling them what's at stake. I developed other skill sets. I started to come forward, engage people, project myself more, And that is the Lawrence Wong transformation. And now I'm here.
And what do you see the transformation going forward? For you, for your party, I mean, for Singapore, why? I mean, I think you've explained a lot about the future, but how would you sum it all up across yourself personally, your team, and Singapore?
I would sum it in one simple sentence, that I will do my very best to ensure Singapore gets through the storm and keep the Singapore miracle going for as long as possible. I see that as my duty. My colleagues have chosen me to do this work, and I will give my heart and soul into it. But I do not do this work alone. It's impossible. Even Lee Kuan Yew didn't do his work alone. And I'm certainly not Lee Kuan Yew. No one in Singapore is Lee Kuan Yew. I am who I am. I will do my best, but I need a team to work with me. I have good members in the team today. I need them. I am strengthening the team with new candidates. And together with the team, we will do everything we can to take Singapore forward.
And is there anything for voters who can appreciate that, the future of Singapore, but maybe who still feel like, okay, what you're talking is too far ahead. I'm going through life now. It's not easy. Like, what would you say to them?
No, absolutely. I mean, we are not just talking about big abstract ideas of taking Singapore forward. We are specifically looking at how we will do more for cost of living. We already had a big package, and we will continue the help. We will do more if conditions worsen. We are addressing the issues that matter to Singaporeans. On housing, for example, as I said, once the supply catches up, we are there almost, and we have sufficient supply, we are reviewing housing rules to make housing, BTO flats, more accessible to different groups, including to singles. We are looking at strengthening our safety nets. We have already done some moves. We will do more in retirement, for example, in healthcare, in long-term care, which is a big issue to deal with. And there again, you talk about radical moves. It's something we have to do quite soon. This is not far away. We have a rapidly aging population. In other countries, how do they deal with it? Nursing homes, largely. We don't have enough land to build nursing homes. And we don't want our elderly to stay in nursing homes. So how do we adjust our entire housing model to allow seniors to age wherever they are and still receive the care they need? We have to make bold, radical changes to come up with new models of care. And that's something we are studying very carefully. So these are things we will deliver, not just far away, 10, 20 years from now. These are immediate concerns that Singaporeans have expressed to us, and we are mindful of them, and we are working hard at finding better solutions.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, that was a very good sum up of what Singaporeans should think about going and heading to elections. And I mean, we super appreciate you coming in to talk about this with us, because this is something that all of us have been grappling with the last few days, right?
And I mean, and I think a lot of people do care.
I think yes, I agree.
A lot of people do care.
I agree.
And I mean, even for us, 2020 was a very different election. 2015, I would say, I was not the most clued into politics, but now it feels like with the ease of information, access to information, everybody is a lot more clued in.
And our audience asks for a lot of these questions of us as well, and we're very appreciative. We get the chance to talk to you and ask about them. Right?
No, I do agree. Singaporeans care, and my approach is to put it out there for Singaporeans to decide. And I believe Singaporeans are discerning and sophisticated voters. And whatever Singaporeans choose, we will respect their choices.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I know your schedule is super tight. Thank you so much for joining us. We do have just one final question.
Sure.
Which is the one Shiok Thing.
Yes.
It's
What is
not
the one Shiok thing?
not elections related, not political. It's just something that you find joy in watching or consuming. And hopefully it's a format that can be shared with our audience. So ideally there's a link to it, or it's a physical location that people can go to. So we will go first. So you get some breathing room.
Okay.
Because I'm guessing now I don't know how much time you have to watch TV.
Not at all.
We can go first.
Yeah.
Terence, you have your one Shiok thing.
So the Wall Street Journal actually just recently did a video titled "Why Dyson Had to Build a Building Within a Building at its New Singapore Headquarters." So it actually it's a 6-minute video that covers Dyson's headquarters at St. James Power Station, and it's beautiful. Like, I mean, I never knew what the interior looked like, but the video actually walks through, that chimney of St. James Power Station. It's now a dining room with one table at the bottom of the chimney.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, and they show in the video, and you don't see these things in Singapore, right? A dining room in a chimney. So that's why I thought the video was amazing.
I think I saw it on my home screen.
So what is the one Shiok thing?
That video.
That video.
That video of the
I
tour.
see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, if we could go to Dyson headquarters, that'd be great.
Yeah,
but
this is the superficial segment of the podcast where it's just
Okay.
something you
I'm
watch.
trying to figure out. Was it
correct.
Dyson
No,
or
not
the
Dyson.
video?
The video.
All right.
The video, yeah.
So that's why it's a one Shiok thing, because there's a link that we can put in the episode description. People can click and enjoy.
All right.
So to be able to watch the video, I think is my one Shiok thing.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
The video itself.
The video, yeah.
So mine is also a video, which is on YouTube, and it is something done by this musician called Jacob Collier. So he did this thing where with the National Symphony Orchestra, I think in the either the UK or US, he as a one person, he kind of improvises with an entire orchestra. So his background is that he started uploading videos on YouTube when he was 14, just doing covers and arrangements of different songs, and he just built up from there. And I think now he's the only British musician to win a Grammy for each of his 4 albums. And his albums, he doesn't sing. He just arranges them. So in the video, he's literally telling, okay, the winds do this, the basses do this, and he just, it's mesmerizing to watch.
He's a conductor, is it? No,
He's a musician.
What's the name again?
Jacob Collier.
Jacob
So
Collier.
he just walks around the orchestra stage. In front is like in the place of an conductor, but he's kind of telling, okay, bring it up, bring it down, and he makes them do some very fun stuff. So my one Shiok thing is that video.
That video.
Brilliant.
Okay. Kim Wong.
And what about you?
Your one Shiok thing.
I would say music.
Okay.
Music, and it's not so much a video, but it's what I listen when I go for a walk to de-stress or a jog to de-stress.
Sure.
I don't have, if you ask me to pin it down, particularly at a time when, let's say I need to feel some, get some heart pumping music, then I listen to AC/DC.
I see. Any particular song?
No, all of them are
Anything.
good, especially the guitar riffs.
I see.
So they, because I'm a guitarist and I appreciate, and AC/DC is just a simple band, guitar, bass, singer, drummer. And the way they pull it together, the tight rhythms and the riffs at the beginning, they get you
hooked.
I suppose charged up. They get you charged up. And so if I'm going for, after a very long day, feeling tired, but you really know you need to go out and exercise, because if you don't, you just end up making things worse. The temptation is to say, I'm so tired, I've gone out campaign, I don't want to exercise, I don't want to go out to walk. But actually, you don't build up your immunity and you're more likely to fall sick. So you have to push yourself to go out and take a run. But you need some music to charge you up. So that gets me going.
Oh, when you say music, I thought you were going to say you listen to Apata,
No, I actually don't. I don't know why that went around the internet, but I don't.
Okay, so it's
concerts are your thing. Do you go to concerts as well to feel the energy, Like if you
I haven't gone for quite a number of concerts. I went, but in the past I went. I've gone for a Def Leppard one. I've gone for Coldplay, U2.
U2.
I see. But cool. Thank you so much, PM Wong. Thanks for taking the time and answering the questions honestly. And yeah, all the best for this election.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Very good to be here. Thank you for hosting me.
Awesome. And to everyone listening, thank you so much. And just check us out on social media. And yeah, we'll talk to you all soon.